There is a silent language written on every face you've ever seen, including the one staring at you right now. A language so fast, so invisible, that 99% of people will never notice it. Yet it controls who we trust, who we fear, and who we fall hopelessly in love with. Today, I'm going to reveal the hidden micro-expressions that decide desire, attraction, and power long before a single word is spoken. If you think you're in control of your emotions, you're about to discover the truth. What you're about to learn is dangerous, because once you see this secret, you can never unsee it. And that's why you cannot skip a second of this video. Before we begin, hit the like button so more people can unlock this hidden knowledge. Subscribe to the channel if you're ready to master the psychology they never wanted you to know. Backhand index pointing right. And share this video with someone who thinks they can't be read, because by the end they'll realize they've never been more exposed. Now, let's step into the world of micro-expression seduction, the secret trick nobody notices. Chapter 1. The Unconscious Codes of Attraction. Some truths never speak. They escape, they leak, they slip out in fractions of a second, revealing what the mind tries to hide. Attraction is one of those truths, always silent but never subtle. You may think you control how you appear, how you sound, how you act. But the oldest part of your brain, the limbic system, does not care about your rehearsed confidence or your carefully chosen words. It reacts long before you decide anything. It notices danger before you see it, desire before you admit it, and connection before you understand it. And in those tiny windows of emotional lightning, your face betrays you. Every human face does. That is the secret most people never learn. The dance of attraction begins beneath consciousness. You sense it when someone walks into a room and your body shifts in a way you can't explain. Your chest opens slightly, your pupils widen, your breath softens. These changes are not choices. They are ancient signals from a system built for survival. Before love, before language, before civilization, the limbic brain was already reading threats and opportunities. It still does. And when you encounter someone who activates that system, the truth shows itself through micro-expressions, the split-second flashes of emotion that reveal your inner world. Micro-expressions are not just facial movements. They are emotional confessions. They come from a place too fast for manipulation, too deep for lies. Even the most controlled person cannot fully hide them, because they are older than self-control. When attraction happens, something softens around the eyes, or a tense muscle loosens near the mouth. A glance lasts a fraction too long. A spark of curiosity, fear, or desire flashes like static electricity. Most people never see these signals consciously, yet their bodies respond as if they do. This is why attraction feels mysterious. Your rational mind is late to the conversation. Your nervous system has already made its decision. The truth of attraction always shows on the face, because emotions demand expression. The limbic system has no words, so it uses movement. When you are drawn to someone, your facial muscles shift in ways that reflect safety, openness, and interest. When you feel threatened, your expressions tighten and pull inward. When you feel indifferent, the face becomes still. Long before you speak, you have already communicated everything, and the other person, without realizing it, has already read it. This is why you can instantly sense when someone likes you, even if they haven't said anything. It is why a conversation feels different when someone finds you intriguing. It is why a stranger's eyes can pull you in before they ever speak. The signals are already there. Micro-expressions, posture shifts, breath changes. An emotional Morse code exchanged between two limbic systems. Attraction is not logical, but it is visible, and these expressions are universal. Paul Ekman, one of the pioneers of emotion science, discovered 7 core emotional expressions that appear on every human face in every culture. Happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, surprise, and contempt. You do not learn them, you inherit them. A newborn makes them long before it understands language. A remote tribe displays them exactly the same way a city dweller does. These expressions are the grammar of emotional truth. When attraction appears, it often hides inside these universal emotions. A flash of fear when someone captivates you. A micro-expression of surprise when your eyes lock with theirs. A brief lift of happiness when they approach, followed by the quick tension of self-control. You may think you are being discreet. Your face disagrees. What makes micro-expression seduction powerful is that it does not manipulate emotions, it reveals them. When you learn to read these codes, you begin to see what others feel before they say anything. You notice the way someone's eyes soften when they trust you. You catch the brief tightening of the lips when someone feels jealousy. You observe a flash of contempt long before a relationship breaks, and you feel the spark of desire the instant it appears. Most individuals live unaware of how much they reveal. They speak volumes without opening their mouths. Their fears show in the wrinkles around their eyes. Their longing appears in widened pupils. Their disappointment flashes in a twitch of the eyebrows. Their attraction glows in the softness of their smile. Once you begin to see these signals, conversations become clearer, relationships become more honest, and your presence becomes more powerful. You move through the world with deeper sensitivity, not because you manipulate, but because you finally listen to what has always been spoken in silence. The unconscious codes of attraction have always been there, etched into the human face, written in the muscles around the eyes, whispered in the movement of the mouth. Most people never notice them. They look at words instead of expressions, logic instead of instinct. But you now understand the truth. Attraction is not a choice. It is a signal, ancient and involuntary, revealing itself one micro-expression at a time. Chapter 2. The seductive micro-expressions most people miss. Some desires speak loudly by staying silent. What you fail to notice in a face often reveals more than the words you hear. Seduction hides not in dramatic gestures, but in moments so small they almost never reach awareness. There is a reason the most powerful signals of attraction last less than a heartbeat. If they were any longer, we would fear their honesty. If they were any clearer, we would lose our ability to pretend we don't feel what we feel. The truth of desire is fast, fragile, and easily denied, and that is why the face whispers it instead of shouting it. The first whisper is in the eyes, not the obvious stare or the slow, deliberate gaze people learn from movies, but the real signal, a 0.1-second glimmer. It's a tiny flash of widened pupils and sudden brightness that appears the moment someone sees something or someone they want. You cannot manufacture it. You cannot stop it. This is the limbic system reacting before the mind chooses a mask. When you catch it, even unconsciously, it feels like a spark passing between two nervous systems. Most people miss it because they search for long stares, forgetting that real attraction appears in the moment before control awakens. Then there is the lip twitch, one of the most misread signals in human interaction. It is not a smile, and it is not nervousness. It is the micro-movement of a mouth fighting the urge to express desire. Sometimes it pulls upward for the smallest fraction of time, as if amusement and longing touched briefly. Sometimes it softens downward, revealing a vulnerability the person tries to hide. The mouth exposes emotional truth faster than any other feature. If the eyes announce interest, it signals openness, curiosity, and a subtle emotional invitation. It is the face saying, "I see you, and I like what I see," long before the person speaks. In human evolution, this gesture was a sign of safety and recognition. Today, it remains one of the purest micro-expressions of interest. When someone does it toward you without realizing, they have given you a glimpse of their unfiltered emotional response. It's the closest thing to hearing what their heart says before their mind interferes. But the most revealing micro-expression of all is the fleeting smile of emotional vulnerability. This smile is not confident, nor is it seductive in the traditional sense. It is small, accidental, and often followed by a quick attempt to hide it. It appears when someone feels warmth, affection, or tenderness they did not intend to show. If you watch closely, you will see the corners of their mouth rise softly, while the muscles around the eyes activate in a way impossible to fake. It is the smile of someone whose guard has lowered without permission. For a moment, their inner world is visible, and that moment is the most honest expression a face can offer. Once you learn to notice these subtle signs, the world changes. You begin to see the difference between polite attention and real interest. You recognize when someone is hiding attraction behind restraint. You can feel the emotional temperature of a conversation shift before a single word exposes it. Every micro-movement becomes a clue, a tiny door into someone's private experience. These signals matter because real attraction rarely reveals itself in the ways we expect. We imagine it appears in grand gestures, bold flirting, or clear verbal cues. But the truth is quieter. Desire prefers to stay hidden behind civility and self-control. People are afraid of showing too much, too soon. They fear rejection, misunderstanding, or losing the upper hand. This fear compresses emotion into tiny flashes, the micro-expressions that last only long enough to betray the truth, but not long enough to force it into the conversation. What makes these expressions seductive is their vulnerability. They show the side of a person that does not strategize or calculate. They are raw, human, and unfiltered. When you learn to see them, you connect with the emotional reality beneath the surface. You stop guessing what people feel. You start sensing it. And people notice this, even if they cannot explain why. They feel understood, seen, and strangely drawn to your presence. You also begin to understand yourself more deeply. You catch your own flashes of emotion, the quick eye glimmer when someone captivates you, the sudden warmth in your face when you're moved, the micro-raise of your eyebrows when curiosity sparks. You realize how often you reveal yourself without meaning to. This awareness does not weaken you. It sharpens you. It helps you communicate more consciously, more honestly, and with more emotional precision. Micro-expression seduction is not about manipulating anyone. It is about learning to read the unspoken language that has always guided human connection. It is about entering the quiet world behind the mask, where attraction shows its first signs, fragile and fleeting. When you master this awareness, you carry a new kind of power. Not loud, not forceful, but deep and intuitive. You become someone who sees what others miss. And there is nothing more seductive than being understood without needing to speak. Chapter 3. Why micro-expressions create instant connection. Some people connect with you before they speak. Others lose you even while saying all the right words. The mystery is simple. The face tells the truth long before the voice tries to. Connection does not begin with conversation. It begins with recognition. An emotional recognition your brain performs without your approval. You feel it in an instant. That strange sense of closeness or distance, of ease or tension, of curiosity or avoidance. And the mind tries to explain it after the fact, creating stories to match feelings that were already decided. Micro-expressions are the invisible sparks behind these decisions. They are the language your nervous system understands faster than your thought. The reason micro-expressions create instant connection is because the human brain is built with something powerful, the mirror mechanic. You mirror what you see in others, and they mirror what they see in you. It happens automatically. If someone flashes a genuine micro-smile, even for a fraction of a second, your brain fires the same emotional pattern. You feel warmth without knowing why. If someone shows a flash of fear, your brain responds with tension. If they show interest, your body softens. This mirroring happens in milliseconds, long before logic enters the room. The mirror mechanic is the silent bridge between two people. It allows you to feel what someone else feels just by observing their face. It is the reason empathy exists, why attraction ignites without permission, and why trust rises or collapses instantly. When a micro-expression appears, your brain imitates it, and in that imitation you feel connected or disconnected within seconds. This is why humans trust what they feel, not what they hear. Words are slow, deliberate, and easy to manipulate. Feelings are immediate, involuntary, and difficult to fake. You may hear someone say they are calm, but if you see the micro-expression of fear around their eyes, you believe the fear. You may hear someone say they are happy, but if their mouth pulls only on one side, you sense the doubt. You may hear someone deny interest, but if their pupils widen and their eyebrows lift for a split second, you know the truth. The body never lies. It reacts before the story appears, before the excuses form, before social masks are put on. That is why connection feels instinctive. You are responding to emotions hidden beneath the surface, not the performance presented above it. Micro-expressions reveal the emotional blueprint of the moment, and your brain follows it before your thoughts catch up. The roots of this mechanism are ancient. Long before humans had language, the face was the primary tool for survival. It signaled danger, acceptance, alliance, threat, and affection. It had to be fast. A second too slow could mean death. A subtle change could mean safety. To survive, humans evolved to read faces instantly and accurately. Attraction, too, grew from this instinct too. A face that showed warmth, openness, or interest signaled safety and potential connection. A face that showed threat or deception signaled danger. Even today, despite modern life and complex social manners, the primal brain still reads faces the same way. This is why facial attraction feels so powerful. It is not just about beauty. It is about emotional clarity. When someone's micro-expressions align with your emotions, when their face reflects openness, warmth, or curiosity, you feel pulled toward them, their presence feels familiar. Your nervous system relaxes, your guard lowers, and connection forms quickly and effortlessly. It feels like chemistry, but it is biology. Micro-expressions also bypass resistance. When someone tries to influence you with words, your conscious mind evaluates and questions. You analyze their intentions, search for inconsistencies, and defend your position. But micro-expressions operate beneath that level. They travel through the emotional brain, not the logical one. You cannot argue with a feeling that appears before thought. You cannot resist a connection that forms in the silence between two blinks. This is why a subtle flash of vulnerability can make a person more likable. Why a quick expression of genuine interest can open someone's heart. Why a micro-glimpse of fear or sadness can create empathy instantly. These moments speak directly to the part of the brain that decides who you trust, who you avoid, and who you let close. When you understand micro-expressions, you begin to see how delicate and powerful human connection really is. You notice the moment someone feels safe with you. You sense the instant they become unsure. You recognize the warmth behind their guarded words. You feel the emotional pulse of a conversation shifting even when nothing is said. Micro-expressions reveal the truth beneath the performance, the emotion beneath the logic, the instinct beneath the words. They show you the hidden world people carry in their faces. The world they reveal only for a moment, only when their guard slips, only when the truth is too fast to conceal. And when you learn to read this hidden world, connection becomes something deeper, more intuitive, almost mystical. You no longer guess what others feel. You sense it. You no longer wonder where you stand. You see it. You no longer struggle to understand people. You read them in the fraction of a second when their face forgets to lie. That is the power of micro-expressions. They create connection before thought, before fear, before self-protection. They reveal what the heart knows before the mind speaks. Chapter 4. Training your eyes to see the invisible. The world hides its truth in plain sight. Most people walk through life blind, not because their eyes fail them, but because their attention does. What is invisible is not what cannot be seen. It is what the mind has not been trained to notice. Micro-expressions live in this invisible world. They are so quick, so delicate, so fleeting, that the untrained eye misses them as easily as a whisper in a storm. Yet once you learn to see them, you begin to experience people in a completely different way. Their faces become open books. Their emotions, once hidden, appear like flashes of light. Their intentions soften, brighten, or darken with the smallest movements. What was once silent becomes loud. What was once unclear becomes obvious. To train your eyes to see the invisible, you must first slow down the world inside you. Micro-expressions appear too quickly for a mind filled with noise. If your thoughts rush, if your emotions scatter, if your attention jumps, your perception loses its sharpness. The skill begins with quieting your awareness, not emptying it, just steadying it. A calm mind sees more. A patient mind notices what others overlook. One of the simplest ways to increase perception speed is to practice observing small movements in everyday settings. Watch the way a stranger's eyes shift when they hear bad news. Notice the brief tension around someone's mouth when they hide discomfort. Pay attention to the tiny lift of a person's eyebrows when something surprises them. These moments are everywhere. On the faces of friends, in the expressions of people passing you, even in the subtle reactions of those who think they are hiding something. As you train yourself to look for these details, your brain becomes faster at catching them. You begin to see what is normally filtered out. The 3-second emotional scan is another powerful technique. It is simple. When you look at someone, give yourself 3 quiet seconds to sense their emotional state, not to judge, not to analyze, just to notice. In the first second, observe the eyes. In the second, the mouth. In the third, the overall micro-tension of the face. Do not force meaning. Just let the expression speak. The brain is naturally good at decoding emotion when given space. With practice, you will sense shifts in emotion in less than a heartbeat. You will feel the faint changes in warmth, tension, interest, or hesitation. This scan becomes second nature, happening automatically without effort. Most people misread faces not because they lack intelligence, but because they rely too heavily on words. They trust explanations more than sensations. They listen to what someone says instead of what their body reveals. They want clarity. But clarity rarely comes through speech. People lie with words every day, out of fear, politeness, insecurity, or habit. The face, however, betrays them before the lie forms. Most people miss this truth because they are waiting for a story instead of watching for emotion. Another reason people misread faces is emotional projection. They see what they expect to see, not what is actually there. If they feel insecure, they interpret neutral expressions as rejection. If they feel hopeful, they imagine interest where none exists. If they feel anxious, they mistake stillness for judgment. Emotional projection blinds perception. To see micro-expressions clearly, you must separate your feelings from the signals in front of you. Your eyes must observe without the noise of your inner world coloring the moment. As you refine your attention, you will notice that micro-expressions often appear in the moments between words. when someone pauses, when they inhale, when they shift their gaze. These transitions are where the truth leaks out. A flash of sadness before laughter, a spark of interest before denial, flicker of irritation before politeness. These are the invisible fingerprints of emotion. When you learn to catch these fingerprints, you start to understand people's emotional maps. You can see when someone is hiding pain, when they are curious but afraid to show it, when they are drawn to you but trying to resist, when they are pretending confidence they do not feel. This ability is not about judgment or manipulation. It is about awareness. The more aware you are, the more compassion you can bring to your interactions. You learn to respond to the emotion someone is actually feeling, not the mask they are wearing. Training your eyes to see the invisible also means practicing stillness in yourself. When you soften your own face, your presence becomes more open. People feel safer showing their real expressions. When you hold eye contact gently, not intensely, not forcefully, others relax and reveal more. When you listen with curiosity instead of impatience, the subtle details rise to the surface. The world becomes quieter, and in that quiet, micro-expressions unfold clearly. Over time, noticing micro-expressions becomes an instinct. You stop trying to catch them, they simply appear. Your perception becomes sharper, more intuitive. You sense emotional shifts as naturally as you sense temperature changes. And once this happens, the invisible becomes visible forever. You cannot unsee it. You cannot return to the old world where faces were mysteries. You have learned to read the truth hidden in the smallest movements. This is the gift of training your eyes. The ability to see people not as they pretend to be, but as they are in the fragile, honest moments when their face forgets to hide. Chapter 5. The emotional baseline. The secret ingredient. The face reveals everything, but only to the observer who knows what normal looks like. A lie is not detected by spotting deception. It is detected by noticing the moment someone stops being themselves. Attraction works the same way. The truth appears not in the expression itself, but in the deviation from the emotional baseline. Before you can read desire, you must understand the person's natural state. Every individual has a unique emotional baseline. A default mode their face returns to when they are relaxed, unguarded, and not trying to impress or hide anything. Some people naturally smile more. Some hold tension in the jaw. Some keep their eyebrows slightly raised even when calm. Some speak with expressive eyes, others with stillness. The baseline is the quiet rhythm of their emotional behavior, and without knowing it, all interpretations become guesswork. Establishing someone's baseline begins the moment you meet them. It starts with watching how they behave before emotions wake up, before interest sharpens their attention, before attraction disturbs the surface. Pay attention to how they blink when they talk about neutral topics. Notice how their mouth rests when they are not thinking about you. Observe how their voice naturally flows when they feel no pressure. This early state is the clearest version of who they are without influence, and it becomes your anchor for reading every micro-expression that follows. Once the baseline is set, deviations become easier to sense. Hidden desire rarely announces itself loudly. It appears in the small places, the unusual stillness, the sudden spark, the slight hesitation. When someone who is normally calm begins blinking faster, something has shifted inside them. When a person who usually speaks quickly slows down around you, that change is intentional or emotional. When someone who always has tight shoulders suddenly softens in your presence, that softness is not a coincidence. The deviation is the message. Desire also reveals itself through tension. The body has a quiet language. It tightens when resisting an emotion and relaxes when surrendering to it. When someone is attracted but trying to stay composed, Micro-tension appears around the mouth, the eyes, or the forehead. These spots tighten for a fraction of a second and then disappear, as though the emotion slipped out before they could catch it. If you know their baseline, you see this instantly. And sometimes, stillness speaks louder than movement. When someone is attracted, they often pause, not out of discomfort, but because their mind suddenly becomes aware of the moment. This stillness can be subtle. They freeze for a split second, their breath slows, their eyes linger longer than usual. It is the kind of silence that feels charged, the kind that makes time feel heavier for a moment. This stillness is not emptiness, it is presence. The person is processing emotion, measuring the atmosphere, feeling the connection. If their baseline is normally active or expressive, this sudden quiet becomes even more meaningful. Stillness also appears when someone tries to hide their feelings. The body becomes too controlled, too careful. The face relaxes a little too perfectly. The posture becomes a bit too rigid, the movements slightly delayed. This performance is subtle, but it always falls apart in micro-expression. Beneath the mask, small flashes of real emotion leak through. An involuntary glimmer in the eyes, a tiny pull of the lips, a faint widening of the pupils. Without a baseline, these moments blend into the noise. With a baseline, they shine like signals. The emotional baseline also reveals when attraction enters without warning. Someone may be speaking about something ordinary, but suddenly, their expression changes in a way that does not match the conversation. The eyes brighten, or their voice softens, or their face seems to warm for no clear reason. These are deviations driven by the internal world, not the external one. They cannot be traced to the words being said. They arise from the feeling of being in your presence. When you know their baseline, you feel these shifts instantly, almost on a gut level. What makes the baseline so powerful is that it prevents false interpretations. Many people mistake friendliness for attraction, nerves for rejection, shyness for disinterest. The baseline cuts through this confusion. If someone is usually shy but becomes more open around you, that is meaningful. If someone is normally confident but suddenly becomes nervous, that means something too. The baseline becomes your compass, helping you read what the person is truly feeling, rather than projecting your own assumption. To master micro-expression seduction, you must learn to see the person in front of you as a dynamic emotional landscape, not a fixed image. Their baseline forms the ground. Every deviation is a ripple, a shift, a disturbance that reveals deeper layers. The more you observe without judgment, the more accurately you interpret. The more you listen with your eyes, the more clearly you perceive desire hidden beneath the surface. When you understand the emotional baseline, you stop chasing obvious signs and start noticing the subtle truth. You see desire in the moments when someone forgets to control their face. You feel interest in the breaks between their words. You sense connection before it is spoken. And in these fragile, fleeting moments, when their emotions move just slightly away from their baseline, you find the real secrets of attraction. Chapter 6. Decoding attraction signals in real time. Some truths do not speak, they flicker. Attraction is one of them. Never announced, never declared. Only revealed in subtle movements that the untrained eye misses. Seduction is not loud. It whispers through the smallest shifts in the face and body. And once you learn to read those whispers, the world becomes strangely transparent. You are not looking for dramatic gestures or theatrical signs. Real attraction works in micro-expression, in fractions of seconds, in tiny involuntary reactions that betray what a person feels before their mind has time to hide it. When you learn to see these signals in real time, you understand not just what someone says, but what they cannot stop themselves from saying. The eyes always speak first. When someone feels a pull toward you, Their pupils may expand for just a moment, widening as if trying to take more of you in. Their gaze returns to you faster than they intend. They break eye contact, but quickly come back. There is a softness around the eyes, an unguarded warmth that appears before they recover their composure. Watch for the micro-glance downward, the quick check of your lips, the unconscious scanning of your face for signs that you feel the same. The eyes become restless, hungry, curious, unable to stay still. Then there is the mouth, perhaps the most honest part of the face when it comes to desire. An attractive pull often shows itself in the brief upward twitch of one corner of the lips, not quite a smile, more like the beginning of one that someone tries to suppress. The lips soften slightly, relax or part just a little as breathing changes. Sometimes they press together for a split second, a subtle attempt to regain control. When someone is drawn to you, their mouth gives them away long before their words do. The eyebrows reveal interest the way a heartbeat reveals excitement. A quick lift, barely noticeable, flashes like a spark when someone sees you. It lasts less than a second but reappears each time they are surprised by something you say or delighted by your presence. Raised eyebrows signal openness, curiosity, and a desire to understand you more deeply. A single eyebrow, lifting just a bit higher than the other, can indicate playful attraction. A moment of internal tension between wanting to act and wanting to stay composed. Even the angle of the head tells its own story. A slight tilt to the side often shows comfort or vulnerability, the body's way of revealing trust. When someone is attracted to you, they expose the softer areas of their neck without realizing it. Leaning in closer, even if just by a few centimeters, is a form of silent seduction. Pulling the head back, however, usually shows caution or uncertainty. People who want you near them will often mimic your head position without thinking, syncing themselves with your rhythm without a word. Breathing is the quietest signal of all, yet one of the most powerful. Attraction disrupts the natural rhythm of breath. It becomes slightly faster, then steadier, then shallow, then deep, shifting as the internal conflict between desire and restraint plays out. You may hear a soft sigh, see the shoulders rise and fall more noticeably. Notice the chest opening, as if trying to prepare for connection. Breath rarely lies because it is half physical, half emotional, and fully out of conscious control. But the true art of decoding attraction does not come from observing any single signal. It comes from stacking them, layering subtle signs until a pattern emerges. A single eyebrow lift means nothing. A single glance at your lips can be accidental. A quick change in breathing could be stress. But when the eyes soften, the mouth relaxes, the eyebrows rise in tiny sparks of interest, the head tilts slightly, and the breath shifts, all within minutes. Then you are not guessing anymore. You are reading a language that was always there, waiting for someone patient enough to see it. Stacking signals is the difference between intuition and accuracy. You train your intuition not by overthinking, but by collecting evidence quietly, almost meditatively, letting your mind absorb the pattern. And as you do, you start to see that attraction is rarely hidden. It is simply subtle. People reveal themselves in real time constantly. They just hope nobody notices. The key is presence. Most people are too busy thinking of what to say next or worrying about how they appear. They miss the rapid eye movement, the half smile, the eyebrow flicker, the breath shift. They rush past the very signs they wish they could understand. But you, if you stay calm and perceptive, can watch without forcing anything. The signals come to those who do not chase them. This awareness gives you a quiet advantage. Not to manipulate, not to dominate, but to understand. You begin to respond not to the words spoken, but to the emotions hidden beneath them. You can slow down when someone becomes nervous, soften your tone when their breath tightens, Lean in when their eyes search for closeness, or give space when their head tilts away. You dance with their signals rather than walking blindly through them. Over time, this becomes effortless. You begin to feel the micro shifts before you even consciously register them. You sense the quickened breath, the softening lips, the returning gaze. You experience attraction, not as a mystery, but as a conversation written in muscle and nerve. And the paradox is this: the more you learn to read these signals, the more you realize how few people ever pay attention. Everyone wants to be seen, but very few know how to see. To master this silent language is to step into a different kind of world, one where hidden emotions are clear, where desire has a shape, and where seduction is not a game but an understanding. Attraction is not loud, it never will be. It lives in the quick, the fragile, the almost invisible. And once you learn to read it in real time, you will never again mistake silence for absence, or subtlety for uncertainty. You will know what they feel long before they dare to say it. Chapter 7. The Art of Subtle Seductive Signaling. Some connections are not built with words, but with shadows. The strongest attraction is rarely declared. It hides in the quiet space between two people, weaving its influence through gestures so small that only the person meant to feel them ever does. Seduction, at its highest level, is almost invisible. Micro-flirting is the most delicate form of attraction. It is not teasing, not boldness, not confession. It is the gentle shift of energy you create when you let someone feel seen without saying it aloud. This form of signaling slips beneath the rational mind and settles directly into the emotional one, making the other person feel a pull they struggle to explain. It begins with presence, the kind that doesn't cling or demand attention, but rests calmly in the moment. When you are present with someone, they sense it in the micro-changes of your gaze, in the softness of your expression, in the relaxed openness of your posture. You are giving them space while simultaneously drawing them nearer. The power of micro-flirting lies in its restraint. Because it never forces itself, it becomes impossible to ignore. People are wired to detect even the slightest signs of emotional investment. And when those signs are subtle enough to feel unintentional, they become far more intriguing. A quick glance that lingers a fraction longer than necessary. A quiet lowering of the voice when you speak to them. A small, almost invisible smile when they say something that amuses you. These cues create tension without pressure. They allow attraction to grow in the mind of the other person rather than being pushed onto them. Attraction deepens when people sense what might be present, not when they are told what is. That is how the emotional loop begins. A mutual emotional loop is formed when your subtle signals trigger a mirrored response. You give a soft glance, they give one back. You lean in slightly, they unconsciously do the same. You slow your breathing, and their nervous system slows to match your rhythm. You create a small spark, and they answer it. This loop is the silent conversation beneath the surface, where two bodies and two minds begin to sync without conscious permission. In these shared micro-moments, you create a private world only the two of you feel. When the emotional loop forms, neither person needs to speak about what's happening. The energy is enough. It is felt in the chest, in the softness of the face, in the slight warmth spreading through the body. You both know something is unfolding, but the beauty is that neither of you needs to rush it. Seduction becomes a shared secret, a subtle shaping of the space between you. Subtle cues feel more powerful than overt flirting, precisely because they offer room for imagination. Overt flirting gives answers. Subtle flirting gives questions, and questions live longer in the mind. When someone receives a quiet, ambiguous signal, they replay it, they analyze it. They feel a hint of excitement mixed with uncertainty. It becomes a psychological echo, returning long after the moment has passed. Did you mean it? Was it accidental? Should they respond? Should they ignore it? This uncertainty is magnetic. It activates desire more strongly than any clear declaration ever could. People fall deeper into subtle seduction because it feels personal. Overt flirting can be performed for anyone. Subtle cues are unique, almost intimate. They feel like they were meant for that specific person in that specific moment. When someone senses that your micro-signals are directed only at them, they feel chosen, even if you never say a single emotional word. Humans are drawn not only to admiration, but to the feeling of being quietly understood. The art of subtle seductive signaling is also the art of self-regulation. It requires calmness, emotional clarity, and a grounded presence. If you push too hard, subtlety dissolves into effort. If you hesitate too much, the signals disappear. The power lies in the balance, clear enough to be felt, soft enough to be questioned. When you master this balance, people experience your presence as warm but composed, open but controlled. You become both inviting and mysterious, which is the most potent combination in any seductive dynamic. You must also understand the psychology behind why subtle signals resonate so deeply. The human mind is designed to detect micro-changes in the environment. We evolved to read faces, postures, and shifts in tone long before language existed. Subtle cues bypass defenses. They feel safe yet intriguing. They activate desire without activating fear. When you communicate interest through micro-expressions, the other person's nervous system relaxes while their curiosity heightens. They lean toward you without realizing why. This is why subtlety is not weakness, it is precision. It allows you to see how the other person responds without overwhelming them. It lets you adapt your energy to theirs, creating harmony rather than tension. The entire dance becomes effortless. You do not chase attention, you allow it to grow naturally. And perhaps the most fascinating part is this. Subtle signals make the other person believe that their attraction is self-generated. When you guide the interaction gently, they feel the emotions as their own, not as reactions to something you tried to create. That is the deepest form of seduction, the kind that feels like it was born within them, not planted by you. In the end, subtle seductive signaling is not about manipulation or strategy. It is about awareness. It is about seeing the small things, feeling the small things, and responding in a way that builds connections slowly, quietly, beautifully. It is the art of letting desire grow in the shadows, where it becomes stronger, richer, and far more unforgettable. Seduction, in its purest form, is not about what you do. It is about what you allow to happen. Through subtle cues, micro-expressions, and gentle emotional loops, you invite the other person into a world that feels safe, intriguing, and uniquely alive. And once they step into that world, they rarely want to leave. Chapter 8. Projecting confidence through controlled expressions. Power is not always loud. Sometimes it sits quietly on the face, steady eyes, calm breath, a faint smile that reveals nothing yet suggests everything. True confidence is not performed. It is leaked through the smallest expressions, the ones you barely notice giving away. And the most seductive people are not those who speak boldly, but those whose micro-expressions whisper certainty even when they say nothing at all. To project confidence, you must first understand what your face is doing when you're not paying attention. Most people assume they look composed, but the truth is that the face is always broadcasting emotional signals. A moment of doubt pulls the eyebrows together. A flicker of insecurity tightens the mouth. A flash of anxiety widens the eyes for just a fraction of a second. These are the micro-expressions that reveal more than any sentence ever could. When you learn to control these signals, not to suppress emotion, but to guide it, you create a presence that feels grounded, deliberate, and deeply attractive. Confidence begins with awareness. Imagine your face as a mirror reflecting your internal state. Before you try to control anything, you must learn to sense the subtle shifts within yourself. The body speaks before the mind does. When you feel tension rising inside you, it travels upward. Jaw stiffens, lips thin, forehead strains. The goal is not to freeze your face, but to soften it. When your internal state feels chaotic, the first step is to relax the micro muscles. Loosen the jaw, let the eyelids rest, release the forehead. This gentle unblocking calms the nervous system and naturally aligns your expression with confidence. One of the most powerful tools in seductive communication is the controlled micro-smile. It is not a grin, not a smirk, and not an attempt to charm someone. It is simply the slightest upward shift at the corner of the mouth, so small it almost isn't there. The magic of the controlled micro-smile is that it signals comfort, inner certainty, and emotional balance. It tells the other person you are open but not needy, interested but not chasing, warm but not over-attaching. The micro-smile shows that you carry your emotions lightly, that you aren't easily shaken. This kind of expression draws people in because it feels safe and confident at the same time. Your eyes play an equal role. Confidence is reflected in the steadiness of your gaze, not the intensity, not the length, but the stability. Insecure people dart their eyes around the room. Overly aggressive people hold eye contact too long. But someone who is genuinely confident looks at another person with calm curiosity. The gaze does not demand or cling, it simply observes. When your micro-expressions align with this steady gaze, you create a sense of emotional congruence. Your words, your tone, your posture, and your face all speak the same emotional language. People trust those who are emotionally congruent because there is no internal conflict leaking through the cracks. But confidence is not just about congruence, it is also about emotional dominance. Emotional dominance does not mean overpowering someone or suppressing them. It means you guide the emotional tone of the interaction. You set the pace. You influence the atmosphere. When someone feels nervous, you remain calm. When someone tests you, you remain steady. When someone pulls back, you stay composed. Emotional dominance shows in micro-expressions that remain stable even when the environment shifts. It is the quiet strength of someone who does not crumble under pressure, who does not react impulsively, and who does not allow their inner world to be dictated by external forces. To project this emotional dominance, your micro-expressions must soften instead of sharpen when challenged. If someone confronts you, your face stays relaxed. If someone tries to provoke you, your eyes remain warm. If someone becomes unpredictable, your expression does not tighten. This level of control signals psychological maturity, a trait that is irresistibly seductive because it promises emotional safety and leadership. Once you begin to master controlled expressions, you will notice something subtle but profound. People start reacting to you with more respect, more openness, and more interest. They lean in when you speak. They mirror your calm energy. They feel strangely comfortable around you without knowing why. Your micro-expressions tell them that you are not simply performing confidence. You are embodying it. Controlled expressions also give you the ability to guide the emotions of others without saying a word. A softening of the eyes can calm a tense person. A slow, faint smile can encourage someone to open up. A serene expression can diffuse conflict before it begins. A steady gaze can create a moment of connection that words could never build. Through these subtle cues, you shape the emotional atmosphere around you, becoming someone who influences the world without forcing anything. The more you practice, the more you will realize that controlling your micro-expressions is not about manipulation. It is about emotional intelligence. You are learning to manage what you show on the surface so that it reflects your best internal state, not your fears, not your insecurities, not your old habits. This form of self-control is not suppression. It is refinement. You are shaping your presence into something deliberate, calm, and powerful. In the end, confidence is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet. It sits gently on the face, in a soft gaze, in a slight smile, in a steady breath. When you project confidence through controlled expressions, you give others the gift of feeling safe in your presence. And in a world full of noise and uncertainty, that kind of presence becomes unforgettable. Chapter 9. Emotional Trigger Points. Some desires are awakened not by beauty, not by charm, but by a tiny shift in the face. A flicker of emotion so small the conscious mind ignores it, while the unconscious lunges toward it. Attraction is not a choice, it is a triggered response. And the most powerful triggers are the ones you never see, only feel. When you understand emotional trigger points, you stop guessing what creates desire, and you start activating it with precision. These triggers are not manipulative. They are natural psychological pathways, the same ancient circuits that guided humans long before language existed. The face reveals these pathways like a map. Each tension, each softening, each fleeting expression sending signals into the other person's nervous system. To someone trained to see, the smallest shift is enough to create curiosity, comfort, or even longing. The micro-expressions that activate desire begin with the slightest moment of vulnerability. Humans are drawn to signals that show emotion leaking through the mask. When your eyes warm for just a second, when your mouth softens as if catching a thought, when your eyebrows lift in a gesture of genuine interest, you create an emotional opening. These are not big expressions. They are tiny fractures in the emotional armor that invite the other person to step closer. Desire grows in these moments because they feel authentic, unfiltered, and intimate. Curiosity, one of the strongest emotional triggers, often starts with the eye. A brief widening, not dramatic, just enough to signal that something or someone has truly caught your attention, activates the other person's instinct to understand why. Humans crave being noticed, especially in a world that constantly distracts us. When your micro-expression suggests real interest, even for a fraction of a second, you give the other person a gift, the feeling of being seen. And that feeling pulls them toward you with surprising force. Comfort, another essential trigger, comes from softness. A slight lowering of the eyelids, a calm exhale, a delicate smile that isn't forced. These signals tell the other person's brain, you are safe here. Safety is seductive because it relaxes defenses. It opens the door to connection. When someone feels emotionally safe in your presence, they begin to reveal more, speak more freely, and feel a deeper resonance with you. They associate your face and your presence with relief rather than tension. Longing, the most intense emotional trigger, emerges from contrast. A moment of warmth followed by a subtle withdrawal. Not a rejection, not a coldness, just a small space that makes the other person lean in emotion. A fleeting smile that fades too quickly, a soft look that breaks away first, a moment of openness followed by a hint of mystery. Longing is created when the emotional signal is sincere but incomplete, enough to awaken desire, but not enough to satisfy it. The brain cannot resist filling the gap, and that search creates attachment. Your voice plays a crucial role in enhancing these facial signals. The human voice is a kind of emotional amplifier. When your tone matches your micro-expression, a warm voice with a soft smile, a curious tone with an interested gaze, the signal becomes stronger, more believable, and more seductive. But when your voice and facial expression disagree, the brain becomes confused and trust weakens. Emotional alignment is the foundation of influence. Your voice should never overpower your facial cues. It should accompany them like a subtle harmony. Timing is equally important. A micro-expression that comes too late feels unnatural. One that comes too early feels forced. Desire is awakened. When your expression appears in the exact moment, the emotion flickers. This timing cannot be faked. It can only be cultivated through presence. You must be attentive enough to your own feelings that your face responds naturally, not mechanically. The more present you are, the more your expressions feel alive, organic, and irresistible. In conversation, emotional trigger points appear in the brief pauses between sentences. When the other person finishes speaking, your first micro-expression is the one they trust most. If your eyes soften, they feel accepted. If your eyebrows lift slightly, they feel interesting. If your mouth relaxes, they feel safe opening up further. People rarely notice why they feel drawn to someone, they simply feel it. And the pull almost always begins in these silent moments. When you use your face, voice, and timing together, you create emotional environments. You awaken curiosity with a flash of interest. You deepen comfort with a softening of expression. You ignite longing with a touch of warmth, followed by a step back. You are not trying to control another person's emotions. You are offering signals that their brain is already wired to respond to. In truth, emotional trigger points are acts of communication on the deepest level. They reach into the unconscious and say, "I see you, I feel you, I am here with you." And the unconscious answers long before the conscious mind becomes aware. Seduction, at its purest, is not about strategy but sensitivity. When you master these emotional triggers, you become someone people feel drawn to without understanding why. Someone whose presence awakens something ancient inside them. Someone whose face speaks to their deepest instincts in a language older than words. Chapter 10. Manipulation through facial influence. Some people can control a room without raising their voice, without making a threat, without touching anyone at all. They do it with the smallest movements of the face. An eyebrow shift, a softening of the mouth, a silent expression that enters the other person's nervous system before their mind even notices. The most dangerous manipulation is quiet, and the quietest manipulation is written on the face. When you understand facial influence, you begin to see how much people reveal without meaning to. Emotional leakage is constant. Hidden fears slip through the eyes. Impatience tightens the lips. Attraction appears in a flash of warmth that disappears as fast as it came. Most people never notice these cues, but someone trained in micro-expressions can read them with almost painful clarity. And once you can read them, you can influence them. Not by force, but by creating subtle emotional conditions that guide the other person's reactions. To exploit emotional leakage is not about cruelty. It is about awareness. You see the moment someone's eyes widen just slightly when you mention a certain name, and you understand what it means. You notice the tiny eyebrow twitch when you ask a difficult question, and you know they're hiding something. You sense the brief micro-smile when you praise them, and you know exactly where their hunger for validation lies. People reveal their emotional weaknesses constantly. They cannot stop themselves. The face is honest even when the voice lies, and the moment you learn to read these cracks, you can predict reactions before they happen. If someone shows a micro-expression of irritation when you shift the topic, you know a boundary has been touched. If their eyes soften when you slow your voice, you know they are starting to trust you. If their gaze flickers downward when you move closer, you know you've activated a deeper emotional response. Predicting reactions is not magic. It is the simple consequence of seeing what others miss. Once you see the emotional seed, you know exactly what kind of emotion will grow from it. But there is a darker side to this ability, one many people underestimate. Facial influence can create a kind of emotional power that feels intoxicating. When you realize you can trigger warmth, vulnerability, or desire with nothing more than your own controlled expressions, it becomes tempting to use it without restraint. A well-timed soft smile can lower someone's defenses. A subtle look of disappointment can make them chase your approval. A controlled frown can silence their resistance. Micro-expressions can shape the emotional tone of a conversation faster than any argument. This is where ethics become crucial. Influence is not inherently harmful. Humans influence each other constantly. But manipulation begins when your goal is hidden while your signals are not. If you read someone's emotional leakage only to exploit their insecurities or fears, you are not practicing emotional intelligence. You are weaponizing it. The danger lies not in the skill itself, but in the intention. Even a gentle expression can become a tool of control if it is used to bend someone's emotions without their awareness. There is another danger as well. The more skilled you become, the more detached you may feel from others. When you can predict reactions, see insecurities, and influence emotions with precision, you may begin to treat people as puzzles rather than humans. You may start to calculate instead of connect. Seduction becomes strategy. Conversation becomes a psychological map. And you forget that behind every micro-expression is a real person whose emotions deserve respect. Yet the power is real. A controlled expression can anchor someone to you emotionally. A subtle shift in your eyes can signal confidence that makes others follow your lead. A moment of warmth can create trust before a single word is spoken. But you must remember that real influence is strongest when it is used responsibly. You can guide emotions, but you should never imprison them. You can read someone's vulnerability, but you should never exploit it for harm. The face gives you access to the deepest parts of a person, and that access carries weight. When used with awareness and empathy, facial influence becomes a tool for deeper connection. You understand what someone feels even when they cannot express it. You respond to emotions they don't know how to articulate. You help them feel understood without forcing them to explain. This kind of influence can heal instead of harm, but if used without restraint, it can control instead of empower. In the end, the face is a battlefield of tiny movements, each one revealing a truth or hiding one. You can learn to read this battlefield, to navigate it, to move within it with grace and intelligence. But you must decide what kind of influence you want to hold. Seduction, persuasion, emotional control, they all begin with a single expression. And the most powerful expression is the one that changes not only how someone sees you, but how they feel around you. Chapter 11. Creating Dependency Through Emotional Mirroring. People are drawn to those who feel like reflections of themselves. It is a subtle, almost invisible pull, one that bypasses reason and lodges directly in the heart. Emotional mirroring is the silent code that governs this pull. The art of reflecting someone's feelings, expressions, and rhythms so closely that they sense you understand them before a word is spoken. In the right hands, it creates trust almost instantly. In the wrong hands, it becomes a form of quiet control. Mirroring begins with attention. To mirror effectively, you must first see clearly. Every micro-expression, every fleeting twitch of emotion must be observed. A subtle smile, a slight tightening of the jaw, a barely noticeable rise of an eyebrow. All these are messages from the unconscious. When you reflect these signals in your own expressions, posture, and tone, you communicate on a level that words cannot reach. People are hardwired to respond positively to mirroring. It tells them, without their conscious awareness, that they are understood and accepted. This is the foundation of fast trust. Trust built through mirroring is different from ordinary trust. It is visceral, immediate, and unreasoned. You do not have to persuade someone logically. You do not have to explain yourself. When their micro-expressions meet your mirrored ones, their nervous system relaxes. Their defenses drop. They feel a quiet resonance, a sense of familiarity, as though you have always known them. This is why emotional mirroring is such a powerful tool in human interaction. It taps directly into the need to belong, to be recognized, and to be accepted without effort. From trust, attachment grows almost naturally. When you consistently reflect someone's emotions, they begin to associate you with safety, empathy, and understanding. Your presence becomes comforting, like a steady anchor in an unpredictable world. The person begins to seek your attention and affirmation, not consciously, but instinctively. This is the point where dependency can form. It does not happen through coercion or demand. It happens because the brain equates your mirrored presence with emotional stability. You have become the calm center in the chaos of their own feelings. Yet with this power comes profound responsibility. Emotional mirroring can easily shift from connection to manipulation. When your reflections are used to guide someone's emotions toward your own goals, trust is no longer a gift, it becomes a lever. You can create attachment and dependency intentionally, shaping feelings to influence decisions, desires, and actions. This is why the study of micro-expressions is so ethically charged. Every flicker of the face can be a doorway to influence, and how you use that influence defines your morality. Timing and subtlety are critical. Mirroring that is too overt feels false. The unconscious recognizes it immediately, and trust evaporates. You must mirror precisely, almost invisibly, so that your actions feel like natural resonance rather than deliberate reflection. A slight lean when they lean, a softening of the eyes when they soften, a quiet echo of their breathing. These are the threads that weave emotional connection. When done skillfully, it feels organic, effortless, and even magical. The person does not notice that they are responding to you. They only feel the pull, the comfort, the desire to remain close. The danger lies in forgetting the human behind the signals. When mirroring becomes purely strategic, you risk seeing people as puzzles to solve or instruments to play, rather than as beings with independent emotions. Emotional manipulation, even subtle, carries consequences. Dependency built through mirroring can feel comforting in the moment, but if the trust is exploited, it creates a rupture so deep that recovery is nearly impossible. Ethical mirroring requires respect for boundaries and awareness of the other person's autonomy. Your reflections should illuminate, not enslave. There is, however, a transformative side to this skill. When used with integrity, emotional mirroring fosters deeper empathy, connection, and intimacy. You learn to tune into the nuances of human feeling. You begin to understand how fleeting expressions reveal layers of thought and emotion that words alone cannot convey. You develop a presence that feels attuned, soothing, and deeply trustworthy. People are drawn not because you manipulate them, but because you have become someone who sees them fully, responds with subtle grace, and validates the emotions they often hide even from themselves. The paradox of emotional mirroring is striking. The very techniques that can bind someone to you can also liberate them. The power lies not in forcing attachment, but in cultivating understanding. You do not need to control every reaction or predict every desire. By reflecting genuinely, you invite authenticity. You create an environment where emotions can flow, where curiosity and trust coexist, and where connection feels natural rather than coerced. The person feels understood, and that alone can inspire loyalty, admiration, and affection. To master emotional mirroring is to step into the shadow of influence while holding light. You see the micro signals of desire, fear, joy, or hesitation. You respond in kind, calibrating your expressions to resonate with the other person's inner state. You create trust that is rapid and profound, and in that trust, attachment begins to bloom. But always remember, the mirror can heal as much as it can bind. The choice of how to reflect and to what end is yours. And the consequences, subtle though they may be, are real. Chapter 12. Reading Lies, Secrets and Emotional Weakness. Every face carries secrets. Every flicker of expression, no matter how brief, is a confession the lips may never speak and the voice may never betray. Human emotion cannot be fully hidden. It leaks in microseconds, in tiny twitches, in subtle shifts that pass beneath the conscious eye. To read these signals is to enter the hidden world of someone's inner life, to witness truths they hope remain unseen. And with that knowledge comes power, the kind that can persuade, influence, or protect you from deception. Detecting hidden fears begins with the smallest inconsistencies. When someone is anxious or lying, the body reacts before the mind has time to filter. Eyes may dart slightly. Lips may press together for a fraction of a second. Or the forehead may tighten in a way that contradicts the words being spoken. These micro-expressions are instantaneous, often lasting less than 1/10 of a second, yet they reveal what the conscious face attempts to conceal. A practiced observer can catch these fleeting cracks, spotting vulnerability, tension, or hidden intentions almost before the speaker is aware of them. Inconsistencies are the breadcrumbs of truth. When a person's facial expression does not match their verbal message, the unconscious mind registers it immediately. The mouth may smile while the eyes betray discomfort. A nod may accompany hesitation. The rhythm of breathing may shift ever so slightly. These mismatches are subtle, easy to overlook, yet they speak volumes to those trained to notice. Lies are rarely complete fabrications. They are mixtures of truth and concealment, and the unconscious face often cannot keep up with the mind's attempt to deceive. Observing micro-expressions to catch secrets requires patience and calm. You cannot force a reaction. You must create conditions in which the truth emerges naturally. Slow conversation, careful phrasing, and timing are tools in this process. When someone feels observed yet unpressured, their micro-expressions become more apparent. A subtle frown may slip when a sensitive topic arises. A fleeting tightening around the eyes may signal fear, or a minor lip twitch may betray discomfort. Each of these signals, individually small, forms a mosaic of the person's hidden state. Understanding these cues also allows you to sense emotional weakness. Everyone has thresholds, small vulnerabilities that influence behavior, decision-making, and susceptibility to persuasion. Turbus note. When you see a flash of worry, hesitation, or doubt, you can anticipate how that person might react in future interactions. This does not require malice. It is simply a tool for awareness. By recognizing emotional weak points, you gain insight into how people respond under pressure, what motivates them, and how they might be guided or protected. Reading lies and secrets is also about subtle patterns. No single micro-expression tells the whole story. It is the repetition, the clustering, and the context that reveal meaning. A brief eyebrow lift may be meaningless on its own, but when it occurs in response to multiple statements, it signals an internal truth struggling to emerge. Emotional leakage is cumulative. The body cannot maintain deception perfectly for long, and repeated inconsistencies become a map of concealed feelings. When used skillfully, micro-expression reading provides a psychological advantage. It allows you to navigate social interactions with heightened awareness, responding to hidden cues before they become overt problems. You can detect when someone is uncomfortable, uncertain, or holding back, and adjust your approach accordingly. This is not about controlling others. It is about understanding them on a deeper level, perceiving layers of thought and emotion that are otherwise invisible. However, the ethical dimension is ever present. Knowing the secrets others cannot hide places great responsibility in your hands. Micro-expression reading can protect, connect, and inform, but it can also manipulate, exploiting fears, exposing insecurities, or leveraging hidden truths for selfish gain crosses a line. Awareness of these boundaries is essential. The true power of reading faces is the choice to act with insight rather than coercion. Your ability to notice these micro-moments sharpens with practice. Start by observing the smallest shifts in the people around you. The flash of an emotion in their eyes, the tightening of lips, the subtle drop of the head. Compare these cues to the words they speak. Over time, you will begin to recognize patterns, understand triggers, and anticipate reactions. You will become attuned to the invisible currents of emotion that shape behavior long before it becomes conscious. Ultimately, reading lies, secrets, and emotional weakness is a doorway into human psychology itself. The unconscious mind speaks on the face faster than any lie can be constructed. By learning to observe these signals, you gain access to the hidden layers of thought and feeling that most people never see. This skill provides not only advantage but insight, allowing you to connect more authentically, respond more wisely, and navigate social landscapes with a rare clarity. In the end, those who can read the invisible truth of the face move through the world with an understanding that is both powerful and profound, seeing what others desperately try to hide, and knowing when to act and when to simply watch. Chapter 13. Micro-expression seduction in dating. The moment two people meet, an unspoken conversation begins long before a single word is spoken. The first glance, the tilt of a head, the quick flash of emotion across a face. These are the silent signals that dictate attraction, curiosity, and desire. In the world of dating, micro-expressions are the invisible currency. They reveal interest, hesitation, or longing faster than any compliment, gesture, or carefully rehearsed line ever could. Those who learn to read and respond to them gain an advantage that is subtle, psychological, and deeply persuasive. The first 30 seconds are critical. In that short window, the unconscious mind is already evaluating, deciding, and responding. A flicker of the eyes, a tiny lift of the eyebrow, a faint softening of the lips can tell you more about attraction than an hour of conversation. People are wired to react emotionally before they think rationally. That flash of recognition or hesitation is your guide. It tells you whether to engage more confidently, back off, or adjust your approach. In dating, the first impression is not built on words alone. It is forged in these invisible, fleeting cues. Reading interest before speaking is an art. Observe the subtle signs, the micro-smile that appears for less than a second, the slight forward lean, the small mirroring of your gestures, or the sparkle in the eyes that cannot be feigned. These are honest indicators of curiosity and attraction. Unlike overt flirting, which can be manipulated, micro-expressions cannot be fully controlled. They leak the truth of desire, fear, and intrigue. By noticing them, you gain insight into what the other person is feeling, giving you the ability to respond in ways that deepen connection and build tension naturally. Escalating subtly in response to these cues is the essence of micro-expression seduction. When you detect interest, you can match it with gentle reciprocation. A softening of your own gaze, a calm, slow smile, a subtle shift in posture that mirrors theirs. Each micro-response reinforces their sense of being seen and understood, creating a feedback loop that feels effortless yet intoxicating. The escalation is psychological, not overt. It is about timing, rhythm, and the layering of tiny signals rather than grand gestures or declarations. In this way, seduction becomes less about what you say and more about what you communicate without speaking. Tone of voice, timing, and touch all work with micro-expressions to amplify attraction. A slightly lower pitch, a pause before speaking, or a delicate emphasis on a word can strengthen the effect of your facial cues. When your expressions, words, and tone are aligned, the unconscious mind perceives you as congruent, authentic, and emotionally compelling. The person you are interacting with experiences not just interest, but a sense of magnetic alignment, where their own emotions are mirrored back to them in a way that feels rare and deeply satisfying. Yet, subtlety is key. Overdoing micro-expression seduction is like playing an instrument too loudly. It loses nuance and becomes obvious. The power lies in restraint. A barely there smile, a softening of the eyes, or a momentary reflection of their emotional state can carry more weight than grand gestures. The unconscious mind notices authenticity. It reacts to tiny, unforced signals. When practiced carefully, these small expressions create an invisible thread that draws someone closer, allowing attraction to build organically and with surprising intensity. The interplay of mirroring and micro-expression awareness is what separates effective dating from ordinary interaction. By subtly reflecting their emotional state, you communicate empathy and understanding without appearing to try. This builds trust and attachment almost immediately. People naturally gravitate toward those who reflect their own emotions back to them, feeling understood and validated. The deeper the mirroring is aligned with genuine presence, the more potent the connection becomes. Understanding micro-expression seduction also means recognizing the moments when the other person is not ready or disinterested. Micro-signals of discomfort, hesitation, or closed-off body language are just as informative as signs of attraction. A tightened jaw, a slight backward lean, or a fleeting frown tells you when to pause or retreat. Seduction is not about pressing forward relentlessly. It is about responding to emotional cues with precision, sensitivity, and awareness. In doing so, you maintain control, respect boundaries, and increase the likelihood of genuine attraction. Ultimately, dating through micro-expressions is about presence, observation, and subtle communication. You notice the flickers of desire, curiosity, and hesitation, responding in ways that reinforce connection and intrigue. Each glance, smile, and mirrored expression carries weight, creating an invisible rhythm of attraction. The skill is not in forcing feelings, but in perceiving and harmonizing with them, guiding the emotional dance without breaking its natural flow. When practiced thoughtfully, micro-expression seduction transforms first encounters from uncertain and clumsy into precise, magnetic, and emotionally resonant exchanges. You become someone who is not only seen but felt, not only noticed but remembered. In dating, the face tells the deepest truths, and those who read it well hold the quiet power to awaken desire before a single word is ever spoken. Chapter 14. Seduction in Social Dynamics. Groups have a rhythm all their own, a silent pulse that moves faster than words and deeper than conscious thought. Every glance exchanged, every micro-movement of the face, every fleeting emotion is part of an unspoken network of influence. In social dynamics, the rules of attraction shift. It is no longer one-on-one, but a complex web of alliances, power, and subtle dominance. To navigate it successfully, you must learn to read the invisible currents, to perceive the hidden signals that reveal who is an ally, who is a threat, and who is open to your influence. Micro-expression influence in groups is different from individual seduction. In one-on-one encounters, your attention is focused entirely on one person. In a group, you must scan multiple faces, noticing the smallest flickers of emotion that reveal alignment, fear, desire, or dissent. A half smile exchanged across the room may signal support. A brief tightening of the jaw may mark subtle resistance. The tilt of a head or a brief glance at another person can expose loyalties and hierarchies. Every tiny expression is a clue to the unspoken social map, and those who notice it first hold a distinct advantage. Charisma is the currency of influence in social settings, but it is not always loud or obvious. True charisma is quiet, magnetic, and controlled. It emerges in the micro-expressions that signal confidence, warmth, and understanding without dominating the conversation. A fleeting, knowing smile, a controlled micro-nod, a momentary reflection of the group's emotional state. All of these communicate connection and mastery without words. Dominance, on the other hand, can be harsh, overt, and threatening. Micro-expressions allow you to calibrate between the two, balancing authority with approachability, so that others are drawn to your presence rather than intimidated by it. Detecting allies and threats in the group requires a keen eye. Micro-signals reveal not only internal emotional states, but also social intentions. Someone whose eyes frequently scan the room, whose eyebrows tighten at others' remarks, or whose micro-smile appears only when observing someone specific, may be guarding against a perceived threat. Conversely, a person who mirrors your micro-expressions, who softens their gaze or slightly leans in when you speak, is likely to be an ally or potential support. By observing these subtle cues, you can navigate the group intelligently, forming connections and avoiding conflict without overt confrontation. Influence in social groups is a delicate dance. You must communicate confidence, empathy, and subtle control simultaneously. Micro-expressions allow you to guide the emotional tone, setting rhythms that others unconsciously follow. A brief upward glance, paired with a warm micro-smile, can signal approval, encouraging cooperation. A controlled frown or eyebrow lift can command attention without raising your voice. These small signals are powerful because they bypass rational defenses, reaching the unconscious mind before words even take shape. In a group, the one who controls the micro-emotional flow often guides the group itself. The danger lies in misuse, using micro-expressions to manipulate group dynamics for selfish gain, to humiliate, or to control others without their awareness, creates fractures that are hard to repair. The unconscious mind remembers emotional manipulation, even when the conscious mind does not. Ethical social influence relies on subtlety, respect, and awareness. You are reading emotions to understand and harmonize, not to dominate or deceive. The most magnetic figures in social dynamics are those who guide with perception and empathy, rather than with coercion. Subtle escalation is key. Influence begins with attention, noticing small cues, validating emotions, and reflecting states when appropriate. Over time, this creates a sense of rapport and trust, not just with individuals, but with the group as a whole. People feel understood, aligned, and even protected in your presence. As your micro-expressions communicate calm authority, warmth, and interest, the group unconsciously accepts your emotional leadership. You do not need to be loud or commanding. The silent language of your face carries the message more effectively than words ever could. Reading the micro-signals of social dynamics also sharpens your situational awareness. You begin to perceive subtle power struggles, hidden alliances, and unspoken tensions. Someone who fidgets, briefly averts their gaze, or flashes a micro-expression of annoyance may signal a brewing conflict. 2. Another person, whose micro-expressions align with yours, may indicate loyalty or willingness to collaborate. Each expression adds to a larger pattern, creating a mental map of the group's social and emotional landscape. Ultimately, seduction in social dynamics is not about conquest. It is about resonance. By mastering micro-expressions, you become attuned to the invisible threads that connect people. Understanding how emotions ripple through the group, you guide subtly, influence without overt force, and create a presence that draws allies and diffuses tension. Those who can read and respond to these signals are not just seen, they are felt. In the quiet, fleeting language of the face, you wield power, charisma, and influence that shapes the group in ways others never consciously perceive. Mastering this skill transforms social interaction into a psychological art. You learn to navigate complexity with grace, to command attention without aggression, and to create alignment without force. Every smile, glance, or fleeting expression becomes a tool for connection, a signal that shapes the emotional reality of the group. In the world of social dynamics, those who read the invisible currents of emotion move not only through the crowd, they guide it subtly, powerfully, and almost imperceptibly. Chapter 15. Professional Seduction, Power, Persuasion, and Influence. Power is often silent, subtle, and invisible. In the boardroom, at the negotiation table, or in high-stakes professional settings, the most effective influence rarely comes from loud commands or forceful words. It is expressed in micro-signals, the tiniest movements of the eyes, the briefest flicker of emotion, the precise timing of a smile. These micro-expressions communicate confidence, authority, and understanding in ways that words cannot. Those who can read and control them hold an invisible advantage over everyone else, a hidden lever of persuasion that can shape decisions and sway outcomes before a single sentence is fully formed. Leadership is first perceived before it is spoken. People respond instinctively to signals of competence, calm, and awareness. A subtle lift of the eyebrow, a controlled micro-smile, a brief nod, all convey readiness, confidence, and presence. When your micro-expressions align with your intentions, you communicate authority effortlessly. Others unconsciously mirror these signals, perceiving you as competent and trustworthy. In professional contexts, this silent influence can be more persuasive than any speech, presentation, or argument, because it bypasses resistance and reaches the primal part of the brain that decides trust and credibility before logic intervenes. Negotiation is an arena where micro-expressions are both a weapon and a shield. Observing fleeting cues of hesitation, interest, or discomfort in the other party allows you to gauge the real balance of power. A momentary tightening of the lips, a subtle shift in gaze, or a barely perceptible pause in breathing can reveal doubt, insecurity, or eagerness. These signals offer insight into when to push, when to yield, and how to frame your words for maximum impact. Likewise, controlling your own micro-expressions prevents the unconscious broadcast of anxiety, impatience, or doubt, keeping the upper hand even in tense exchanges. The negotiation is won not just with logic, but with the silent dialogue of facial cues, timing, and emotional presence. High-stakes scenarios amplify the importance of subtlety. In environments where every decision carries weight, the unconscious mind of others is constantly scanning for truth, consistency, and reliability. A flicker of fear, a brief flash of uncertainty, or a micro-expression of impatience can shift perception dramatically. By reading these signals, you can anticipate reactions, adjust strategies, and maintain control of the emotional tone of the influence becomes not about manipulation alone, but about awareness, the ability to perceive before being perceived, to respond before being reacted to, and to guide outcomes through subtle, almost invisible channels. The professional seduction of influence is not about deceit. It is about mastery of presence. It is the deliberate alignment of micro-expressions, posture, and timing to create resonance with others' emotional states. When executed ethically, it fosters trust, cooperation, and engagement. A leader who subtly reflects confidence and understanding can calm tension, encourage collaboration, and inspire loyalty, often without raising their voice. Their influence is felt, not imposed. Others follow because they sense clarity, competence, and emotional congruence, qualities that are communicated more powerfully in micro-moments than in speeches or commands. Micro-expression advantage is built on observation and calibration. Professional mastery requires noticing the smallest cues: flicker of an eyelid, the tightening of a jaw, the slight incline of the head. Each carries information about internal states, intentions, and emotional reactions. The skilled observer synthesizes these signals into a map of perception, allowing them to adjust their own expressions and gestures to maintain influence and control. In high-pressure meetings, boardrooms, or negotiations, these subtleties become the difference between success and failure, trust and doubt, alignment and miscommunication. Ethical responsibility is central. The ability to read and influence micro-expressions carries immense power, and with power comes the choice of how to act. Using these insights to intimidate, manipulate, or exploit others damages relationships and reputations. True professional seduction, the kind that sustains influence over time, relies on respect, insight, and strategic empathy. It is about guiding outcomes while preserving autonomy, encouraging cooperation rather than fear, and using subtle cues to illuminate understanding rather than conceal intent. In practice, professional seduction is both art and science. It requires patience, awareness, and the ability to integrate observation with act. The professional who masters micro-expressions develops a sixth sense for the emotional undercurrents of interactions, sensing hesitation, interest, or resistance before it is spoken. By controlling their own expressions and observing those of others, they can navigate complex social landscapes with precision, calm, and subtle authority. Ultimately, the power of micro-expression seduction in professional contexts is the power to shape reality invisibly. It is the mastery of the silent, unconscious conversation that governs trust, influence, and cooperation. Words may persuade, arguments may convince, but the micro-moments of expression decide whether those words are believed, accepted, or rejected. Those who understand this hidden language move through professional life, not as participants, but as architects of perception, wielding influence with elegance, intelligence, and a quiet, almost imperceptible control. Conclusion: the power you can't unsee. Once you have learned to read the invisible currents beneath the surface of every interaction, nothing feels quite the same. Faces are no longer just faces. Each glance, twitch, and micro-expression carries meaning, whispering truths that words often fail to convey. This power is both intoxicating and unsettling. You begin to notice what others try to hide, and the world shifts from a place of simple communication to a landscape of subtle truths, unspoken desires, and concealed intentions. There is no turning back. Perception is forever altered. Once you see beneath the surface, every interaction carries the weight of what you can now read. Your perception will change, not gradually, but immediately. In a crowded room, a casual smile may reveal attraction, doubt, or curiosity. In a negotiation, a brief tightening of the jaw signals hesitation, a slight nod indicates alignment. These micro-moments, once invisible, become obvious to you, and the unconscious dance of emotion, influence, and desire is laid bare. You will start to sense currents that others cannot see, feeling the subtle ebb and flow of attention, trust, and interest in ways that feel both precise and profound. The world becomes richer, darker, and more alive, and with this richness comes responsibility. Emotional intelligence is no longer an abstract idea. It is a tool, a lens, and a responsibility. You understand that every flicker of emotion can be acknowledged, mirrored, or subtly influenced. But knowing this carries moral weight. Reading others' hidden feelings is not inherently right or wrong, yet how you act on that knowledge defines the ethical boundary of your influence. You may notice someone's vulnerability, hesitation, or secret desire, but whether you exploit it, nurture it, or simply observe is a choice that will shape both your power and your character. Awareness without responsibility is dangerous. The real mastery of this skill lies not in manipulation alone, but in discernment, empathy, and ethical application. Mastering seduction through awareness requires patience and subtlety. It is not about aggression, loud dominance, or coercion. The most powerful influence is quiet, precise, and aligned with the flow of emotion. Micro-expressions allow you to guide interactions, deepen connections, and create trust without force. A fleeting smile, a softening of the eyes, a mirrored micro-gesture. These are tools of attraction that bypass conscious resistance and reach the primal part of the mind. Seduction becomes a dialogue of perception, an elegant negotiation of emotion, where influence is earned through understanding rather than imposed through power. You will begin to recognize patterns in behavior and responses, learning to anticipate reactions before they are consciously expressed. The smallest cues, a glimmer of the eyes, a twitch of the lips, a shift in posture, become signposts to someone's inner world. Over time, your ability to perceive these signals strengthens, allowing you to navigate social landscapes, dating, and professional environments with heightened precision. You will see hesitation before it becomes objection, desire before it is confessed, and alignment before it is spoken. This is not magic. It is the science of observation, applied with subtlety and insight. Yet, the greatest seduction is not about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself. Awareness must be paired with restraint. The temptation to exploit this knowledge for selfish gain is ever present, and the consequences of misuse are as immediate as they are lasting. Ethical application turns this skill into a force of connection, influence, and emotional resonance. The unconscious mind responds to authenticity, congruence, and empathy, not to manipulation cloaked as subtlety. Mastery is measured not by how much you can take, but by how wisely you can navigate the currents of emotion while preserving integrity. As you leave this journey of understanding, the world appears both more transparent and more mysterious. Faces reveal their truths, fleeting as they are. And yet each revelation carries layers of complexity, choice, and consequence. You have been given a lens through which to see the hidden language of desire, fear, curiosity, and alignment, and it is a lens that changes everything. Every glance, every gesture, every micro-expression is an invitation to insight, a signal to be noticed, and an opportunity to act with intelligence and subtlety. This power, the ability to read the invisible, to perceive emotion before it is spoken, to influence without aggression, is profound. It transforms interaction into understanding, attraction into connection, and awareness into influence. But it is a power that demands responsibility, reflection, and ethical judgment. Once you see the hidden truths beneath the surface, you cannot unsee them. You are forever equipped with the ability to navigate the subtle currents of human behavior, to engage with clarity, and to influence with elegance. The choice of how to wield this power is yours, and the consequences of that choice will ripple through every connection you encounter. In the end, micro-expression seduction is more than a technique. It is a way of perceiving, a practice of empathy, and a philosophy of influence. It teaches you to observe, to reflect, and to respond with awareness. It reminds you that the silent language of the face speaks louder than any words, that influence begins where observation meets understanding, and that true power comes from the quiet mastery of perception. The world may appear unchanged to others, but to you, it will never be the same again. Thanks for watching. Before you leave, hit the like button so more people can unlock this hidden knowledge. Subscribe to the channel if you're ready to master the psychology they never wanted you to know. And share this video with someone who thinks they can't be read. Because by the end, they'll realize they've never been more exposed.